you are a faithful God, so good, so gracious, full of mercy. Lord, we are grateful and thankful that you have redeemed us, you've saved us. Father, help us to love you with all of our being. Help us to worship you. Lord, help us to grow in our knowledge of who you are. Be with us today. God, help us to encourage each other. Lord, to be enriched and nurtured in our lives from having been here. Amen. You may be seated. Would our ushers come for the offering this morning?
Kenny, would you open up, please?
Kenny, would you ask the Lord to bless our offering, please?
Yes, sir. Lord Father in heaven, we thank you for this absolutely wonderful day you've given us for a chance to experience life and the breath that you've breathed into. And God, we pray that this money is used not only to the church's benefit, but for your glory and to whatever you wish to be blessed. God, we thank you for the opportunity to all be here together. And in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. 'Cause 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 'c
seated.
Sound like a sick camel, didn't it? Back in the book of Joshua this morning, we're looking at chapter 4. A couple of comments to start with before we read our text. You'll see in our text this morning, and I assume probably we'll be seeing it through the rest of the way of the book, where the Israelites are spoken of as the people. The people did this. The Lord said to the people. Joshua said to the people, as a reference to the Israelites. And sometimes, in fact, I would say probably most of the time, that term is spoken of in general terms. And very seldom does it mean every single person there. All right, he might, Joshua, the people, as you see that, might have said, all that you say we will do, just as we obeyed Moses, and now we will obey you and we will follow you. That doesn't mean that every single person meant that. In every group that is spoken of in general terms, it means as a whole they followed. But even in those instances, there were people who were imposters among them, and we'll see one in a few weeks as we continue through the book of Joshua. Also, we've talked about this before, that we'll see examples of Joshua or whoever the writer is giving us information to a certain point and then backing up and repeating that information, and usually in greater detail. We've talked about that before. We'll see it this morning for sure. This will be a common thing that we will see as we go through the book as well. So let's read our text, and I'll be stopping and making a few comments in it as we go through. Chapter 4, chapter 3, you remember they have made it across the Jordan River, and now we back up and we tell some of this again. We can see we left it in chapter 3, all the people were across, and the priests are still standing, it seems to be in the middle of the Jordan River on the dry ground that God dried up for them. They're still there. So chapter 4, verse 1 says, when all the nation had finished passing over the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, take 12 men from the people, from every tribe of man, and command them, saying. Now, you remember back in chapter 3, I think it was verse 12, we saw a verse that I've mentioned that just kind of stood out. Verse 12 says, now therefore take 12 men from the tribes of Israel. This is Joshua talking to the people. Take 12 men from the tribes of Israel, from each tribe a man. And then it says no more about it. He goes on to something else. I was expecting him to tell what these 12 guys are supposed to do or fixing to do, but there's no mention of it. Well, now we're coming back to them. So he says in verse 2 of chapter 4, take 12 men from the people from each tribe, a man, and command them, saying, take 12 stones from here, out of the midst of the Jordan, from the very place where the priest's feet stood firmly, and bring them over with you, and lay them down in the place where you lodge tonight. Then Joshua called the 12 men from the people of Israel, whom he had appointed. See, that's going back to chapter 3. A man from each tribe. Joshua said to them, pass on before the ark of the Lord your God into the midst of the Jordan, and take you up, each of you, a stone upon his shoulder. I would assume from that phrase that these aren't uh, softball-sized stones. These are perhaps 100 pounds or something that they would have to labor to carry, perhaps. Sown upon his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the people of Israel, that this may be a sign among you. When your children ask in time to come, what do these stones mean to you? Then you shall tell them that the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. So these stones shall be to the people of Israel a memorial forever. And the people of Israel did just as Joshua commanded, and took up 12 stones out of the midst of the Jordan, according to the number of the tribes of the people of Israel, just as the Lord told Joshua. And they carried them over with them to the place where they lodged, and laid them down there. And Joshua set up 12 stones in the midst of the Jordan, in the place where the feet of the priests bearing the ark of the covenant had stood, and they are there to this day. Now, I think I would assume it seems pretty obvious to me that they're not there to March the 30th of 2025. I would assume that this to this day means the day this was written by whoever wrote it. Now, it's not out of the possibilities that those stones are still there and will be there perpetually, so that this says what it says. That's possible. I'll acknowledge that. But more than likely, it's talking about they're there to the day this was written, whether it's a year later, 5 years later, 3 weeks later, I don't know. Verse 10, for the priests bearing the ark stood in the midst of the Jordan until everything was finished, that the Lord had commanded Joshua to tell the people, according to all that Moses had commanded Joshua. The people passed over in haste. Now notice verse 11. And when all the people had finished passing over, notice that phrase, passing over, the ark of the Lord and the priest passed over before the people. So here we see in this verse, verse 11, that the people have passed over. That the word passed over means they have made it across, right? They are passed over the other side of the Jordan, the west side of the Jordan River. The priest and the ark have passed over as well. So in that verse, that we have the account, the recorded of the ark being across. Verse 12, he goes on, the sons of Reuben, the sons of Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh passed over armed before the people of Israel, as Moses had told them. You remember those 2.5 tribes were required, because they were going to have their final land on the east side of the Jordan. They were required, before they could settle it, or before they could stay there, the armed men had to go across the Jordan with the rest of the Israelites and help them drive out the people where they were going to settle. They left their wife and kids and the cattle and stuff back where they were at. And so, but they have to go across. And our text tells us in verse 13, there's 40,000 of them, about 40,000 ready for war, passed over before the Lord for battle to the plains of Jericho. On that day, the Lord exalted Joshua in the sight of all Israel. They stood in awe of him, just as they had stood in awe of Moses all the days of his life. So we've got pretty well everything established. The people are over there. The ark is over there. The 2.5 tribes of armed men from Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh are over there. They have went with them. They're in the front. When they go to battle, they will be in the front. Everything is settled. And then we get to verse 15. And verse 15 is one of those swinging around verses where it goes back and says pretty much the same thing, but with a little more detail. Back in verse 11, we saw the account, just 3 or 4 phrases there. All the people had finished passing over, the ark of the Lord and the priest passed over before the people, period. But now we get to verse 15, and we're going to see more detail. And the Lord said to Joshua, command the priest bearing the ark of the testimony to come up out of the Jordan. So here's some new information. God tells Joshua to tell the priest to come out of the Jordan. So Joshua commanded the priests, come up out of the Jordan. And when the priests bearing the ark of the covenant of the Lord came up from the midst of the Jordan, and the soles of the priests' feet were lifted up on dry ground. Now, they're already on dry ground in the Jordan. I think this dry ground is a reference to what would not have been flooded if the river had never been moved. So they get up past the flood stage on the dry ground. Then the waters of the Jordan returned to their place and overflowed all its banks as before. The people came out of the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month. Now we're going to make a note of that date. First month, the 10th day, because we'll see that a little later on, not in this chapter. And they encamped at Gilgal on the east border of Jericho. Jericho is 5 to 7 or 8 miles from west of the Jordan River. So the children of Israel come out and they camp between the Jordan and Jericho. So they're on the east side of Jericho. And those 12 stones, which they took up out of the Jordan, Joshua set up at Gilgal. And he said to the people of Israel, when your children ask their fathers in times to come, what do these stones mean? Then you shall let your children know Israel passed over this Jordan on dry ground. For the Lord your God dried up the waters of the Jordan for you until you passed over, as the Lord your God did to the Red Sea, which he dried up for us until we passed over, so that all the peoples of the earth may know that the hand of the Lord is mighty, that you may fear the Lord your God forever. Now there's one thing that I want to notice back in verse 9. So they've got these 12 big stones, 12 guys, each of them carrying a stone, out of the river. They got the stones from the area in the river where the priest and the priests were standing with the ark. And in verse 9 it says, and Joshua set up 12 stones in the midst of the Jordan, in the place where the feet of the priests had stood. So it seems like that we've got two pillars or memorials being raised. One of the 12 big stones that they carry out, and then it looks like Joshua does this, it seems like by himself. He sets up 12 stones there in the midst of the Jordan in the river. So these stones perhaps are fixing to be covered up when this water is released. Now he says they're there to this day, so they were there for a while. Now my mind goes to thinking, like I told you 2 or 3 weeks ago, about trying to figure this out naturally. And what I know naturally would happen would be when all this water that's standing up on a heap and is backed up for 10 or 15 miles, we figured out, that when that's released, naturally what I see is a big rush of water, and those stones, 12 stones in the middle of the Jordan, are going to be long gone. Okay? That was Joshua calling you. All right? So that's how my mind works. Does it have to be that way? No. Those stones God could have kept, apparently did. Either he kept those stones from being washed away, or the water may have came around, went around them, who knows? But they survived that return of the floodwaters to their places. Okay, so there's our text. Now this morning I want to look at two questions from this text and last week's text, and talk about several things that God accomplished with these two events that are taking place. One event is the parting of the Jordan River. What did God accomplish through the parting of the Jordan River? And the second event is the 12-stone memorial. So let's look at these. First question was this: what did God accomplish by rolling back the Jordan River for the Israelites to cross on dry ground? Some of these references are back in chapter 3, and we'll take the time to read most of them perhaps. The first one is, what did he accomplish by rolling back the Jordan River? The first thing is that he convinced them, he convinced the Israelites, he convinced the people that he was with them. Chapter 3 and verse 10, the text says this, and Joshua said, here is how you shall know that the living God is among you, and that he will without fail drive out before you the Canaanites. And he goes on and lists these 7 nations. Here's what's going to happen tomorrow, he says. He tells them, remember we talked about this, he told them beforehand what was going to happen. The water is going to be backed up, and we're going to go across on dry land. And this is how you will know by this event that's going to happen, this miracle that God's going to do to allow you to cross the Jordan River on dry ground. This is how you will know that God is with you. The second thing is this, he convinced them that they would be successful in driving out the enemy. He says that in that same verse, chapter 3, verse 10. You will know that the living God is among you, and that he will without fail drive out from before you the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Hivites, the Perizzites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, and the Jebusites. All right? The third thing, he gave them confidence and respect for Joshua, their new leader. We see in chapter 3, verse 7, the Lord said to Joshua, today I will begin to exalt you in the sight of all Israel, that they may know that as I was with Moses, so will I be with you. So one of the things that God accomplished by the parting of the Jordan River was the people began to look at Joshua with respect, or more respect. They already respected him, but with more respect and more confidence that God was with him as well. We see in our text for today, chapter 4, verse 14, on that day, the day that they crossed, the Lord exalted Joshua in the sight of all Israel, and they stood in awe of him, just as they had stood in awe of Moses all the days of his life. The next one is he connected them to their past. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about history here. He connected them to their past. Chapter 4, verse 23, he says, for the Lord your God dried up the waters of the Jordan for you until you passed over, as the Lord your God did to the Red Sea. So he connects those two events together to their history. Now this is, in their case, in this event, a recent history, 40 years of history that this happened. But history is an important thing. We're going to chase a little rabbit here. It is no coincidence that the ungodly, and just so we can have a name to put on this, the woke culture that's in our country today, it's no accident that one of the things that they are trying to do is to eliminate history. I'm not sure what history is being taught in the public schools today, but I would just be willing almost to bet that it's not the same kind of history that I was taught. How many years ago that was, right? I don't doubt it. You know, an interesting thing, I went to the first through the sixth grades at a town called Dermot in southeast Arkansas. We moved up here between my 6th and 7th grade year, finished 7th through 12th in Heber Springs. And this is interesting. The history, and I liked history pretty well, except I wasn't real wild about, the 1100 AD when King so-and-so, did something, and I don't even know what he did. And it just wasn't, it's just, I don't know if it's just too far away or too disconnected to my life, or, I never got into it. But once you get, about the Pilgrims and the Mayflower and those kind of things, that kind of caught my attention a little bit. But the closer you got to home, the better I liked it. And when I was in the 9th grade in Heber Springs, they had Arkansas history. and we took the whole year studying Arkansas history. Now, this is an interesting thing. The textbook that we used in Heber Springs in the 9th grade, when I was in southeast Arkansas at Dermott, in the 5th grade, we had Arkansas history. And it was the exact same book. I don't know what that says. It would suggest to me that either the 5th grade in Dermott had a very advanced history book, or the 9th grade in Heber Springs could have stood an update or something, you know. Same book, I can still see the book in my mind, a deep navy blue book with a yellow oval on the front cover of it. And I liked that book when I was in the 5th grade, and I liked it a little bit in the 9th grade. The problem was the teacher was a coach. And so you know what happened. We talked about football every day instead of Arkansas history. But one of the things that made that course so interesting to me, and I may not remember right, somebody can check me out, but one of the governors of Arkansas was a guy named Harvey Parnell. And he was from, or his family was from, this little community called Halley, where I grew up. And down this one road, I had always heard of the Parnell place. I had no clue that some of that family was a governor. Once I found out, it fascinated me that this was that close. You know, the governor of Arkansas at one point was very close to where I lived. So that closeness grabbed me. And it always has when we're talking about history. And today, doing away with history as if it is nothing, tearing down this and tearing down that because of this or because of that, destroying history. It doesn't matter if you agree with everything that these old guys did or did not do. Destroying history is a bad thing. It is. It's not good. Because we need to know who we are, where we came from. We need to know all of these things, and they are important. Now, we might look at those things and say, well, you know, okay, so what? You know, they got rid of some history. It's not that big a deal, but it is. We might not recognize it as such, but it is. All right. Do you realize how much of the Bible is history? Practically all of it. All right? We're talking about things that happened, 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago. The New Testament to us is history. The Gospels are history of Jesus' walk on the earth. Even the Revelation, the book of prophecy, is history. In that sense to us, it's history, but it's also a prophecy as well. So we are surrounded in the scriptures by history. And when God and Joshua rolls back the Jordan River, there is this immediate connection with this similar event that happened 40 years ago that the Israelites have only, for the most part, that are there, for the most part, had only heard about. Some of them perhaps had experienced it, but a lot of them had not. Most of them had not experienced it, they'd only heard of it. And now they are witnessing and taking part in this event, this miraculous event that is clearly similar to the parting of the Red Sea. The next one is, perhaps I just said the next one. He made it easy to see the parallels between Moses and the parting of the Red Sea with Joshua and the parting of the Jordan River. Now, I'm not going to read those verses, but from chapter 1 all the way through, there's 5 or 6 verses I've got listed there that make that connection between you can see the parallel between Moses and Joshua, and you can see the parallel between the Red Sea and the Jordan River. He made it easy for them to make that connection. And then the last one, he caused their enemies to become fearful and lose heart by the parting of the Red Sea. We can see in chapter 2, verses 9 to 11, when the spies are in Rahab's house. Here's what she says, 3 verses. I know, she says, that the Lord has given you the land, and that the fear of you has fallen upon us, that all the inhabitants of the land melt away before you. They have lost heart. Why did they lose heart? For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the 2 kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, to Zahad and Og, whom you devoted to destruction. And as soon as we heard it, our hearts melted, and there was no spirit left in any man because of you. For the Lord your God, he is the God in the heavens above and on the earth beneath. We can see in chapter 5, which we will get to next time, the very first verse after the Israelites make it across the Jordan River, verse 5 begins this way. As soon as all the kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan to the west, so it looks like the Amorites were obviously on the west side of the Jordan, but close to the Jordan, and all the kings of the Canaanites who were by the sea, which would be the Mediterranean Sea. Now, I didn't realize how close it is from the Mediterranean Sea to the Jordan River. If I had been guessing, I would have thought a couple of 100 miles. But it's not. It's about 50 miles. That's like from here to Conway or Little Rock. You got a whole country that is there. We're going to have that PowerPoint sign put back up about So he says, the Canaanites who were by the sea heard that the Lord had dried up the waters of the Jordan for the people until they had crossed over. Their hearts melted, and there was no longer any spirit in them because of the people of Israel. So we see once again that they are losing heart and becoming terrified and scared of the Israelites and their God. So these are things that God accomplished by rolling back the Jordan River for the Israelites to cross over on dry ground. The second question is this: why did God have the Israelites build the 12-stone memorial? So let's look at this. Number one, it provided a visual and permanent reminder of what God had done. All right, they saw it. They set the stones up, ever how they set them up, and they were there. It was there, a visual thing that you would see over and over again. Number two, its meaning was not obvious and would have to be retold again and again. You could look at that stack of stones there, 12 stones stacked up, and just looking at the stones wouldn't answer the question, what are they doing here? If someone didn't know, they were obviously not naturally put there. It's obvious that they had been, a man-made pillar had been erected here. And because it was not obvious, it would have to be told again and again. All right, over the years, this information is passed on by word of mouth from one generation to the next. The third one, the out-of-the-ordinary arrangement of the stones would pique the interest of the children who would naturally question why it was there. So your kids come up and they say, what are these things? Maybe they climbed on them, maybe they didn't, I don't know. But there was something different there, and inquisitive children want to know, what is this doing here? And so it gives the adults the opportunity to tell them over and over again. The next one, the questions raised by the children would initiate an impromptu history lesson over and over again. The story would be told from one generation to the next, from one family to the next. And last, it was a means to never forget what God had done. To never forget. That is what God wanted them to do, is to never forget what he had done. Now, I do have a third question there. Are memorials still appropriate and helpful? All right, I don't have a stack of stones stacked up at my house anywhere. But there are ways that I think that people make memorials. Sometimes they are and I've got down here, unintentional memorials, and sometimes they are intentional. I'll give you a couple examples of each of those. One example that's probably wasn't considered a memorial by this person, but it's sort of, at least in my twisted mind, a little bit humorous. Years ago, there was a lady that started coming to our church, not here, many years ago. Kind of, I don't know, 30, 35 years old, I guess. And you could tell that she had had a rough life. Okay. And on her arm, she had tattooed big letters that stretched from here to there on her arm, Kenneth. Okay. Now, I doubt if you might not could consider that a memorial, but in a way, it is. The problem was, that was about 3 husbands ago. All right? Her husband then was named David or something like that. So, you kind of think, I wonder if she wishes that wasn't on there, you know? And maybe so, I don't know, you know? But sometimes things don't what we think is a good idea, we can see later on this is not a good idea. All right? Let me tell you another unintentional memorial in my life. Susan and I have walked through some dark places together. Not dark as between me and her, but together we have walked through some dark places. And I'm not going to tell you the details, and this is the great details because this is recorded, but most of you will know what I'm talking about anyway. If you go to Texarkana, Arkansas, anything west of there and southwest of there, for us, is a dark place. I would be totally happy if I never went to Texas again. Nothing wrong with Texas. We had a son that was at Fort Hood there. His child was born the 18th of March in 2004. 3 days later, he shipped out to Iraq. That was a dark day. For other reasons, that day was dark. For the next several years in our life, there are times we could go by certain street. And she never said this, but occasionally I do. I said, go down that street, see what's down there. The answer is no. Because the memories of things down that street are dark. And you can feel a heavy spirit coming on us. We could feel it just driving by the street and thinking about it. I could name you 5 or 10 places where that geographical location is a dark place for us. The memories are not pleasant. In a way, it is a memorial that I wish we didn't have. And it seems to me like, and I know this is not true, but it seems to me like that it's almost every time we get close to one of those places, this heaviness comes upon us. I know it's not every time, but it sure seems like it. Now, I want to contrast that with another memorial or memory that I have that's unintentional. And it's right here in this church. It's at the old front door around there by the kitchen. In the year 2000, we were adding on to the church, this room and the other stuff that was added on. And I was doing the work. And during that time, and I was asking Susan, and I'm pretty sure we didn't have cell phones then. I don't even know if cell phones were around then. I guess they were. But I don't think we had one. And at any rate, so we're here working. And one day, when I got home, or at some point, Susan began to have pain in her gut, her side, her lower back. I'm not sure how you would describe the location of the pain. And it went on for 2 or 3 days and constantly getting worse and worse and worse. And it became such that I told her, we're going to go to the doctor. She went to the doctor, and they thought, the pain seemed to indicate appendicitis. Well, they did all these, tests. Some of them, thump you on the knee or something other. Some of these tests and some blood work and this and that, trying to run some tests that would show if it was appendicitis. They all came back negative. Wasn't that. In the meantime, this pain was getting very severe. Severe enough that they decided to have, the doctor decided, we're going to have to do exploratory surgery on you and figure out what's going on. And they figured it was, her ovaries or something, something like that. So the gynecologist her doctor was going to do the surgery. Well, they go to Little Rock and they cut her open, and it's not anything related to that. It is her appendix. And her appendix had ruptured. Now, at that point, I didn't know much about ruptured appendix. But they said it was all contained, and the doctor used his hands like this in a little pocket. And they called in another doctor, apparently very, very quickly, and he got it out, pretty much all of it. She spent the next 8 days in the hospital, dealing with a little bit of infection here or there, draining. Left her open to some extent with a drain tube in. I'm probably going to say something that's wrong. But she was there recovering from this. During that 7 or 8 days, as I would be back up here working at the church, or about town, going to the lumberyard or whatever, and people would be asking me about her, and I heard horror story after horror story about ruptured appendix poisoning a person's insides and killing them. And here, I'm hearing these horror stories, and my wife's in the hospital with a ruptured appendix. And that little description of her ruptured appendix being contained in a little pocket took on new meaning for me. She was needing to get well where she could come home. She was discouraged, all of this. I would work here, I'd go down there after work and stay until pretty late at night, come home and get a few hours sleep, repeat the process for 7 or 8 days. All the time she is disheartened because of just hurting, ready to come home, all this kind of stuff. And then one day, I was at the front door of the church, fixed to go outside, and the phone rang, and somebody answered the phone and told me it's for me. When I answered the phone, it was her. And something was different. She was cheerful. She was happy. She was on cloud 9 because they told her she could come home. I don't remember her thinking it was a good idea for me to wait till after work. I think she was meant right then. But here's the memorial for me. I can remember exactly how I felt. The joy, the relief, an overwhelming sense of gratitude when I heard her voice. Now, that may sound like nothing to you. But you don't know how many times between year 2000 and right now, as I've been passing through the church and go out that door, that feeling, that memory comes back. Now, here's something that troubles me. It probably doesn't come back when I go out that door, but 1 out of 100 times. And yet those dark memories that I had, that we have, seemingly were there every time. How is that? I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if there are some dark spirits in this world that want to see that we are troubled by memories of dark things. But here is something that I have decided that I'm going to try to do, is to make that area of this church a memorial for me. I'm going to try to remember when I go there, to have a moment. I may not even pause in my gate walking through the kitchen and out the door, but it comes to my mind to pause and just thank God for healing her, for saving her. Try to make it a regular thing. Now, if you know me, I have a lot of good intentions, and it may not last. All right. You might ask me every once in a while. Let's see. In the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 7, there's a story there of the Israelites have been messing up. They've been worshiping false gods. They've been doing all this stuff. And it's been bad. And the Philistines have given them a horrible time. They've been whipping their tails every time you turn around. And the Israelites have decided that we've screwed up. And we need to get our heart right with the Lord. And so they have this meeting with Samuel to pray and to change their ways, to get rid of these false gods and all this kind of stuff. And so they do it. And while they're meeting there and having this event, this meeting, the Philistines see that they're there and think they've come to fight. And so they get all their army and they head out to meet them, just as they've done in the past few years, over and over and over again. The Israelites see them coming, and the Israelites are terrified because of what they're seeing. They're coming again. And they cry out to Samuel, Samuel, help us. Pray to God that God would help us and deliver us. And God does. God hears them. God sends the Philistines packing. The text reads like that God creates a supernatural event in the skies, a loud thunder type thing that is obviously out of the ordinary, and the Philistines are devastated and they flee. After this event, Samuel, on his way back, finds a stone and he places it in a conspicuous spot for a memorial. Similar to what our text is today, except it apparently was one stone. I don't know how big the stone was. I suppose it was pretty good size. He sets it there for a memorial. And he calls the name of that place Ebenezer. All right? Now, we know that word in our English language as Ebenezer, a man's name, generally. That word actually is a transliteration of a Hebrew word that means a stone of help. And it's pronounced Eben. It's a compound word pronounced Eben Ha'ezer. Eben Ha'ezer. And there it is, a place. Well, years ago, and I don't know how long ago this was, but a man wrote a song that we sing here every 3 months or so. We're going to sing it again if I ever quit talking here this morning. Come thou fount of every blessing. All right? I want you to look at or to listen to the words and the phrases of the song. Verse 1 goes like this: Come thou fount of every blessing, tune my heart to sing thy grace. The writer of this song acknowledges that his heart needs a tune-up. Come thou fount of every blessing. All blessings come, he says, from one source, one fountain, and I need that fountain to come and tune me up. Tune my instrument, tune my heart. He's going to use a musical phrase here. Tune my heart to sing thy grace. Streams of mercy, never-ending streams of mercy, never ceasing, cry out to us to let forth with our lips songs of praise. Streams of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. Teach me some melodious sonnet, sung by flaming tongues above. Praise the mount. I'm fixed upon it, mount of thy redeeming love. Verse 2, he talks about this event in 1 Samuel. Here I raise mine Ebenezer. Hither by thy help I'm come. That's what Samuel was saying. God, we have come to this place by your help, in order that we might never forget it. This stone is placed here, and we call this place Ebenezer. And I hope by thy good pleasure safely to arrive at home. Jesus sought me when a stranger, wandering from the fold of God. He, to rescue me from danger, interposed or interjected or placed into being or into the situation, interposed his precious blood. Then the last verse, one that if you've got a brain in your head, you ought to be able to identify with this. Oh, to grace, how great a debtor daily I'm constrained to be. Today, your actions in some way, maybe a small way, maybe a great way, will demonstrate that you are a debtor in need of grace. You will not be able to resolve that situation yourself. You might do 55 Hail Marys, or you might be nice to your neighbor or your spouse or whatever, trying to do better and to be good and all this, and you will never satisfy the debt you owe of grace. And at the end of the day, your debt will be greater than it was yesterday. At the end of tomorrow, your debt up to grace will be greater than it is today. You cannot fix it. Oh, to grace, how great a debtor daily I'm constrained to be. Let your goodness like a fetter. You know what a fetter is? A fetter is a rope, a cord that ties something to something else. Now, listen to what he's saying. Let your goodness, like a fetter, bind my wandering heart to thee. Tie me to yourself, God. Tie me to yourself. Fasten me to you. Why is that? Because he goes on, prone to wander. Lord, I feel it. Prone to leave the God I love. Here's my heart. Oh, take and seal it. Seal it for thy courts above. Let's pray. As we pray, if the worship team would come up, as we sing this song, sing it out, would you? Father, your grace is so wonderful. God, we know that. We know it. God, help us to remember it. Not just as information, but to experience it. To be convinced of it. And Lord, to make plans to never forget it. Amen. Let's all stand. heart to sing thy great streams of mercy. Call for songs of loudest praise. Teach me some melodious sonnet sung by flaming tongues above. Praise the mount I'm fixed upon it, mount of thy redeeming love. Here I raise my Ebenezer, hither by thy help I'm come, and I hope by thy good pleasure safely to arrive at home. Jesus sought me when a stranger, wandering from the fold of God. He to rescue me from danger interposed his precious blood. Oh, to grace how great a daily I'm constrained to be. Let thy goodness like a fetter bind my wandering heart to thee. Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. Prone to leave the God I love. Here's my heart, oh, take and seal it for thy courts above. Here's my heart, oh, take and seal it for thy courts above.